Hey everybody, welcome back to Pretend World's Real People. As always, I'm Tyler, and I want to share with all of you Benici blue light blocking glasses for your computer. I ordered them off of Amazon, Benicci. If you have trouble, working on your computer for more than an hour or so, and you get eye strain, just take a look at these. Order them if you'd like to. I ordered them. I've been using them for the last couple of days, and it's been amazing using them for my day job, for self-tape editing, for screenwriting. I feel great, and I still can't believe that blue light has that effect on you if you do not block it. So please take a look, give them their support because they're just fantastic, and they'll give you a thank you card in the box. No one does that. Just saying. My arms are up. No one does that. Anyway, let's move right into what's been going on this week. Nothing crazy. A couple self-tapes here and there. My eye has just been glued to Actors Access. I've got a few really fun checks coming in so I can start paying those student loans that are coming back out. Yeah, that's about it. Acting class, as always, because you need your acting class. And yeah, I think that is all on my end, at least. Oh, and rollerblading. So if you are somebody who loves rollerblading, get out there and start doing it. I am 3 or 4 months into getting back into it, and I feel great. Awesome form of alternative cardio. Plus, you feel like, you could be in a Simple Plan video, which I know is a very outdated reference, but we're going to leave it there. Anyway, this week's guest is Anthony Molinari. Now, if you do not recognize his name, you will recognize his face, being from Tenet, The Fighter as Neri, Black Mass, or my personal favorite, Barry, where he plays the grocery store manager in the Ronnie/Lily episode, who gets headbutted by Ronnie and makes this amazing sort of chicken sound that I couldn't help bringing up in the recording. He is an incredible stunt coordinator, stuntman, and actor. And not only that, he's just a very humble and generous person. I didn't want to take up too much of his time because he has been working like crazy. So this is a relatively shorter episode of the podcast, but he was just very sweet. The second we got into the Zoom call before I started recording, he's just like, "Hey man, how's your day go?" Like, just a really, really nice guy, which is something I don't want to say you don't expect, but you don't try to expect from somebody who is a working professional, because you just don't know people. But he was incredibly sweet and generous with his time, and it was just great talking to somebody I've looked up to for the last 12, 13 years, as we do get into, and I do thank him pretty unceremoniously for just inspiring myself and others for just like diving into the industry and trying to make our mark. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's launch into the episode. Let's strap in, grab your soda, your popcorn, maybe you're brushing your teeth while you're getting ready for work. Anything that works for you works for me. So let's sit down and chat with Anthony Molinari.
My name's Anthony Molinari. I live in Los Angeles, and I'm an actor. I started in the business as a stunt performer. Actually, I started in the business as a background artist. Then I worked in the PA world. Then I started pursuing the career of stunts. Did the stunts for I'm still kind of doing stunts. I still have a large window, but of stunt performers and coordinators that I still work with. But for the most part, a lot of my career is kind of focused on acting. So that's what I'm doing now.
And your resume speaks for itself. I think the first thing I ever saw you in was The Fighter, one of my favorite movies, and you were Neri. And the second you popped on screen, man, I was like, holy shit, this guy! Like, I was hoping to see you in more roles like that, and lo and behold, dozens of roles later, you're still like, you're either the this really tough like police officer, you're a badass gunman, or my personal favorite, you make a cameo in the show Barry, where forgive me, I forgot the stuntman's name that headbutts you, and you make this like this chicken sound as you fall down. Do you recall that?
Yeah. That was an interesting evening. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was when I got introduced to Bill.
Yeah.
And Bill Hader runs a great show over there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an absolute film genius. He knows how to he knows how to do it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, we met each other on that show and on that night, and then we've kind of stayed in touch ever since. And I did something that night to impress him, and he's kind of kept me in his camp ever since.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead too far, but I guess I should
Yeah.
rewind back a little bit and see, how did you land in the arts industry? A lot of us just kind of fall into it. What was your journey like from there? Was it more of a did you make a dare with somebody? Was it something you're always interested in? Like when did you start kind of like diving into this part of the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was an interesting story because I wasn't one of those kids that was like I grew up my whole life knowing this is what I wanted to do, what I wanted to pursue. Instead, it was I figured out in college when I was graduating at Bowdoin College up in Maine. I started running this program for children, big
Mm.
brother, big sister program, and that's where I discovered my love for teaching. So after graduating Bowdoin, I pursued early elementary, which I minored in, and I moved out to San Francisco and started teaching. I wanted my goal was to kind of teach as many different kinds of curriculums as possible.
Mm.
And I taught for like about 8 years before I started coming out here pursuing this business. And what was the turning point, what made me kind of give this a chance, was one day I wrote on the board, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And my students had to write like just a short paragraph on what it is that they wanted to be. And one of my students just raised his hand and said, "Mr. M, this is stupid. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up." And I'm like, "Come on, Kenny, just write your paper, please." And he was like, "No, I'm serious, Mr. M. I'm only 9 years old. How am I supposed to know what I want to be when I'm only 9?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Like, well, then let's just talk about what you want to be as a 9 year old. What could you do today?" And so he's like, "Oh, I don't know, Mr. M." So I was like, "Come on, Kenny, you always talk about the crocodile hunter. Write a paper about working with reptiles." He's like, "Yeah, all right, fine. I'll write my paper, Mr. M, if you tell me what you wanted to be when you were 9 years old." And I go, "What?" Because I swear I'll write it, I promise. I go, "Okay. Um, oh, I would have wrote about this fall guy, this Hollywood stuntman who drove trucks and jumped off buildings and got into fights. And I probably would have wrote about something like that." He goes, "You wanted to be a stuntman?" "Can you write your paper?" So then, like a week went by, he comes up and goes, "Mr. M, check it out." I'm like, you're not supposed to print anything off the internet without permission. Come on, man. Like, why you doing?" He's like, "Just look at it." So I look at this and I'm like, "What? Stunt school?" I was like, "Where'd you find this?" He goes, "The internet, Mr. M. Get up with the times. Come on." So he gives me this application for this flyer for the stunt school that I found online, and I put it on my desk. And he goes, "You tell us to follow our dreams as kids. Why don't you go and follow yours?" And I was like, "Touche." I was like, "I'm cool. I love being your teacher, so I'm going to hang out." And so I finished the year, but then I looked at the application and I ended up going to that school in Seattle. And and then when I went to the school, I gave it a chance. I came down to Los Angeles, and that was in 2001, and I've been out here ever since.
Wow. Any chance you've reconnected with Kenny? I'm sure he's what, late 20s now, probably 30.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this was so he was 9, and this was what 21 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's about 30 years old now. I lost touch with Kenny probably about, I want to say, 12 years ago.
Okay.
Once I started having my family, he kind of graduated from his program that he was in. But yeah, no, they definitely knew, the students and Kenny both knew that I came out here to pursue the business, and they all knew that like I was starting to succeed in it, but I don't think they quite got. Well, they might still be following me. I don't know. I have to look them up. I've been
Yeah.
That's been on my list of things to do for a while now, but no, I lost touch with Kenny about 12 years ago.
Oh wow. Well, I'm sure he still sees you. 'Cause, I mean, you're in damn near everything. It's
Thanks.
yeah, it'd be really cool to see that reunion. So I mean, and it's a really non-traditional story. I mean, like you said, you're not somebody who spent years in high school musical theater or something trying to get out and do this. It just, some one of your students pushed it on you, which is just a fantastic story in and of itself. So I mean, you go to the school, you completely rock stunt school, you go down to LA. Did you give yourself a timeline once you got to LA of, hey, if I'm not doing something akin to this in the next year, I'm going back, or were you going full force and just trying to move through it?
A little bit of both. I
Okay.
definitely gave myself goals because I knew that this was a real long shot. And I just
Mm.
knew that I already found something that I was deeply passionate about and in love with. So, and very good at.
Yeah.
I'm an amazing teacher. So I was, I think a lot of it was, but when I do set my mind to something, I know I go for it like there's no tomorrow.
Mm.
So I was going for it, but I also had some stingent goals, short term and long term goals. And one of those was getting in the union. That was the hardest part. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
started just doing non union background work, and I did that for about a year. And I kept hitting these small goals where I'd get one voucher. And then I go, okay, if I don't get another one in 3 months, oh, I got the second voucher. Okay, I'm giving myself another three. And then I got the last voucher, which made me eligible to join the union. So once I got into the Screen Actors Guild, yeah, I felt like I had a real chance and I had to give this some more time. So then I set like, a 3 year goal on if I can't get a stunt job after being out here for 4 years, I'm going to hang it up. And I reached that. And then, yeah, after that, I think, yeah, what you mentioned before, the fighter was kind of the one that really took it over the top. But yeah, it was an interesting journey from the ground up, not knowing anyone and just coming out here and making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. And I have a friend out there right now who she just received her SAG-E eligible voucher because she's doing background working, really trying to build a career from there right now. So I mean, what going back to like first jobs, being especially a newer actor, what was your first job on set? We can go in front of the camera or behind the camera, whichever came first. But do you remember what that first project was?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a low budget wrestling. Well, it was a wrestling movie, and we were doing background. We were just kind of being these crowd kid players that were watching these guys wrestle in the backyard. It was freezing cold in the San Fernando Valley. It was at nighttime. They had like one heater for like 400 of us, and what did they, I call? I remember calling home. I remember calling home and saying like, "Mom, I'm on a movie set." She goes, "Oh my God, congratulations! You're on a movie set for the first time." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "What's the name of the movie?" I was like, "Oh, it's called Slammed." She's like, "Oh goodness, Anthony, please just keep your clothes on. Don't do anything to embarrass us out there." And I'm like, "No, no, no. It's a wrestling movie." She's like, "Oh, good." It's like, "All right, well, have fun." And it was just like, yeah, that was my it was my first experience. I made $49 for 8 hours of work, and
Oh my god.
it was great. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a setup for a whole new acting career. Being in the valley and being called slammed. That it was teed right up. You know.
Yeah, it was. I set myself up with that one.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you work on slammed. You make $49. You start going through. You getting your vouchers. You eventually get your union card, and you're kind of you're on your way, man. I mean, once all this was kind of organized, did you feel like you were getting into a groove like with your career? I mean, were you working another job outside of this to help sort of pay your bills? That's a big question we always ask kind of in around these episodes.
Yeah, yeah. So like getting the non-union work for that first like year or so
Yeah.
was really easy because non-union, like I mentioned, it's very cheap and so like you could do very large crowds. So there was a high demand for non-union players. So I would work 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day, because there was just so much work for the non-union. But once I got in the union, I was able to like, pay for the tuition, the initiation fee to get in, which was pretty expensive. So I just put it on my credit card. All of a sudden, the work just dwindled. So I went out and got a bartending job. I had worked as a bartender when I was teaching because you got to make ends meet. And
Yeah.
up in San Francisco, and my bar slash restaurant owner mentioned to me, "Hey, when you go down to LA, look up this guy, Bob Morris. Tell him that Henry Africa sent you down. He owns the restaurant Paradise Cove. If you ever need a real job, go over there and ask Bob to take care of you. He'll take care of you." And so that's what I did. I went over to Paradise Cove, had an interview, talked to Bob. And once he found out I was one of Henry Africa's like bartenders. He immediately put me on the staff for that summer. So that helped me get through that first summer of union work. And then once I got into the union, getting a couple of jobs, made some relationships, I started to transition a little bit more into the PA work, which was a production assistant. And so I was working, I was able to make enough where I didn't have to do the bartending job anymore. I could live off of the PA and the background income, because all I wanted to do was really be on sets, just learn and hear as much entertainment language as possible, because I knew that's ultimately where I wanted to like create my career. So yeah, that was a journey that kind of took a slow pace, but it was fun, kind of working through it.
Yeah, I mean, you cross the barrier. I hear from everybody else too. The second you get your union card, if you're in a place that thrives on non-union work, you're it's like you're being stuck on an
Oh
island, and you got to swim to the
man,
next big continent.
yeah, it was crazy. I used to get a call from Central Casting, and it was like, I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be a union job. I'm like, great. Like, if you can ride a unicycle, play a harmonica, and juggle all at the same time, you have a job. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like, this is not gonna be easy. But yeah, it was through the when I was in San Francisco, it was actually the first time it ever really got introduced to me. I was working down on Fisherman's Wharf waiting tables, and I remember coming out for my break, and a PA stopped me right at the door, and he said, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa!" I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, we're shooting a shot for a TV show. Can you just hold right here for a second?" And I was like, "I guess so." And then I look down and I see this Camaro come ripping around the corner, just burning rubber, and just flies by us. It's like, who's driving that car? They're like, "Oh, there's a stuntman." I'm like, wait, is that a real job? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, they make money? You pay them to do that? They're like, yeah, we pay them good. I was like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong business. And that was the first time I remember ever really realizing that, like, whoa, entertainment is a real thing. Like like they get paid for this, and this is a real possibility for a real career. And I think I had to see it firsthand in order for it to really sink in. But yeah, I remember that was the first time I ever really got introduced to the the idea that you could get paid to do stunts.
It must be surreal at that moment too. Real, I mean, you went to the school, you did all of the training, but now it's how do you incorporate that once you get to LA? So I mean, how long ago from there when you're standing out seeing the Camaro drive by, you're talking to the PA, to you are on set as maybe a assistant stunt coordinator or doing like PA stuff for stunts. When was I guess not when, but how long of a time frame was that from A to B for you to actually like start working on stunts?
Yeah, that was funny because like realistically, when I was working in San Francisco before I went home and had that incentive by Kenny to kind of come out here and to pursue this.
Yeah.
So basically, San Francisco was prior to that move to come out to do the stunt school. So
Oh, okay.
when I came, so like and that was the initial seed. I never thought it would come back up in my life again, but I do remember walking home that day after work and being like, guys, you wouldn't believe what I saw today. These guys are driving a car. They're stunt guys, and they actually get paid for it. They're like, one of my friends just looked at me like, Molinari, that is your destiny. You are a stunt man. I go, oh, that's funny. He goes, mines will get paid for it. How did you get in the apartment today? Yeah, I had to climb the pillar and climb through the window. He's like, yeah, you got locked out. You climbed through the. He goes, you're a stunt man, brother. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe you get it. But I never really thought twice about it because the teaching was just so fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
That's so that was about 2 years after that is when I had that conversation with Kenny. So
Okay.
to answer your question, it would probably been about 5 years prior to that is when I first set eyes on seeing Nash Bridges being filmed down there on Fisherman's Wharf with the
Oh
yellow
wow.
Camaro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my! I used to watch Nash Bridges all the time.
yeah,
That's
yeah. It was pretty cool.
that's insanity. So I mean, now you've gone to a point where you are solidly working or building a resume as an actor. Is there a project you remember? And maybe we can focus on the earlier side of your career that you remember more fondly than anything. Maybe it was the first time you did a full stunt and you realized like, yeah, this is my destiny manifested, or maybe it's something that you didn't think enjoy as much because of the parameters of the set, and then you absolutely loved it. Is there a particular project you remember fondly?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. I mean, being able to go back to Boston because I was from Worcester, Mass, which is a pretty big city right outside of Boston. The only time we'd go into Boston was to go to a Red Sox or a Celtics game. But going back to Boston, back home, and being able to shoot a film that was about one of your local heroes when you were growing up as a kid, Mickey Ward, that's what blew me away because they had this huge boxing scene at Lowell Stadium, and they said invite whoever you want out. So I was able to invite my whole family. So they had a day where they
Whoa.
came out. It was like I don't know, 30 of them came out and just sat in the stadium and watched Mark and I like duke it out in the ring. And it was just surreal that I was home playing a guy opposite a guy who I admired so much as a kid, Mickey Wood, who's one of our local heroes. And here I am performing in front of my family. And I think those Boston movies, like right after that, I went on and I did The Town, which was like a month
Yes.
later, which was an amazing Boston movie. So and here we are, they have us in the suites up in Fenway Stadium as our trailers per se. We would get changed and everything, and we're just doing the most insane gunfight inside Fenway Stadium. I mean, I was just like, it was surreal. Like going back home, being able to do that kind of stuff, I think are the most memorable ones. Though that one, Black Mass, I invited a couple
Yes.
of friends out and I was asking them for advice on what I should say as a response, an authentic response to Johnny Depp as we're having this scene, and they were blown away. It was just like I think going home is my favorite and most memorable memories from like earlier on in my career.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, you mentioned it. The Town is one of my favorite films of all time, along with The Fighter. I mean, it's something about Boston for me, just it hits. But the idea of going home, performing in front of your family too. I mean, this is. I'm going to remix this into one of our previous questions that we had talked about before the podcast. But do you have any interest in producing, your own projects or funding your own projects set near your hometown, or maybe even set anywhere else? But let's stick primarily in the Massachusetts area.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's gonna happen. It's already kind of happened. We just got done with a project. Super proud of. We're finishing right now. It's in its final steps of being locked. We just completed this project called The Last Deal. I played the lead role in it. We were fortunate enough last month to get into the Boston International Film Festival. So I went home. We premiered it there for the first time. My family took like, I've never had this experience with my family before. They all came up in like I put the elders into a limousine, and then all the kids, they had a party van bus that came up. So it was like 70 people ended up showing up at this premiere of just of family and friends on my end. And it was amazing. I produced it and starred in it, and they just were like, we just had the greatest evening together celebrating like our accomplishments, and it being premiered for the first time in Boston was really special. So it's doing really well right now. We just got into the Dance with the Films Festival, which is one of the bigger ones in Los Angeles, and we're going to be playing at the Chinese Man Theater on June 10th, which would be another amazing experience where I get to celebrate with my West Coast family. So, I mean, right now the producing thing is very successful for the one of my first really big projects that I've done. But yes, to answer your question, overall goal, I would love to produce movies. I mean, I really want to just tell stories. That was one of the big reasons why I left the classroom, was because
Yeah.
I felt like I'm really good at this, and I had no desire to leave the classroom. But if I could inspire at a much larger level and make the world of my classroom, then that would be amazing. So with the power of storytelling and filmmaking, and that includes producing, I'm really looking forward to kind of creating a team, and similar to like the way that great directors like Adam Sandler does it, Clint Eastwood does it. I just worked with like Christopher Nolan. He's got an amazing team, putting together an unbelievable team that you can just feel comfortable with and tell stories and inspire people, move people. Yeah, that's really the overall goal.
And is there any chance you could share a little bit of the synopsis about the last deal with us, or is that kind of it's hush
No,
hush until?
no, we can do it. Yeah, it's basically it takes time uh, during when the black market back in the mid 2015s, like the teens, and where the black market marijuana market was doing really well, and this guy created a small business for himself and was very successful at it until recently when it became legalized. And now all of a sudden the white collar corporates are coming in and are just kind of squeezing a lot of these mom and pops that were doing really well out. So it's his journey that he goes through in discovering um, about himself, really, but really about discovering about like what it's going to take in order to stay afloat. And that's where the last deal comes in. He goes on one last deal to try to save his business, and it's an interesting journey.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Honestly, like that, I want to watch that
Yeah.
right
Oh, it's
now.
great. Oh
Seriously.
man. Yeah. 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 It'll be out. It should be. We're in the midst of like finalizing with the distributor now, but
Okay.
it should be coming out where you could see it on VOD or in the theaters come this fall.
Oh hell yeah! I'm going to the theater for that one for sure.
Cool.
That's gonna be sick. What and going on to your you wanting to tell stories and create sort of a brand and a production standpoint for yourself. Is there a genre in particular that you really really are passionate about, or are you just going to go all over no matter as long as the story's good, you want to make that movie?
Yeah, it's all about the story. To me,
Okay.
it's like, yeah, I mean, it's all about the story. I do love comedy. I'm loving, I love comedy. I love dark comedy. I think that's why I think maybe I fit in so well over in the Barry camp. It's just,
Yeah.
there's something, and I never realized how good of a bad guy I could play. I'm coming to find out that that might be my niche, and you're going to find out really if that's true in the next couple of episodes of Barry, because yeah, it gets to be interesting. That's all I can tell you. I can't
Oh
talk too much about it,
God.
but like you're gonna like starting this Sunday, um, yeah, you're gonna really get a taste of what I can bring as a bad guy, right to the end of the season. So we'll see how it all unfolds, and if we'll see what the reviews say. But my directors have all told me like you'd play a great bad guy. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a huge fan of Barry as is, but now I'm gonna be knocking down days to get to Sunday night just so I can see what you're talking about, man. Oh
And
man.
that was surreal for me too. I mean, I'm telling you, I feel like every time I start a new project, I have these most amazing experiences. I'm so blessed and so grateful for all this. But Stephen Root, if there's one guy out there that like I really was starstruck over, it
Yeah.
was Stephen Root. And I remember back in 2007, we're on this star-studded like cast of a movie, and everyone's like, "Hey, you starstruck about George Clooney or Renee Zellweger?" I'm like, "No." But there's this guy that's coming to set next week. His name is Stephen Root, and I am the hugest fan of this guy. He did Jimmy James on this TV series, News Radio, and I was just blown away by his performance. And he's one of our best, I mean, artists out there, if you ask me,
Yeah.
when it comes to the acting world. He blows me away. But we did the scene together, this episode that's coming up, and I was just I was over the moon by it. I was blown away. And it was great to become friends with him. And we've been friends ever since 2007. We get together at least 2 or 3 times a year to have lunch. He'll be checking out the premiere come June 10th at the Chinese Theater. He said he's going to join us. So, yeah, he's an amazing performer, and it was an absolute, I mean, gift to be able to work with him in that scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the episode now, man. I'm not even kidding. It's just to meet a hero too, and it's not. I don't know. Some people meet their heroes, are people they look up to, and they find that it gets sullied. Like the person is, not the kindest, or there's always those mixed expectations. But it's fantastic to hear that you're even friends with Stephen Root to this day, and being what great performers both of you are. I can only imagine what you're going to bring to that scene. So now I'm even more pumped for that. Going from Barry into you're talking about becoming a villain or a villainous character. I'm surprised I haven't seen you in a Bond movie yet. Is there any talk
Mm.
for that at some point? Have you been
Yeah,
trading
yeah,
emails?
yeah. I mean, I'm open to it. It's funny. I I like the small ones. I like
Mm,
the. I find myself so much more vested and so much more fulfilled when I'm on these smaller sets. But the Bonds would be amazing. I mean,
yeah.
what they've done with that Bond franchise is just, I mean, unbelievable. The last one was fantastic. I mean, I love that franchise. So I would jump at the opportunity to play a bad guy on something like
I'm gonna
that.
keep my eyes open because I mean they're shifting everything. So who knows? In the next year or
Who
so,
knows?
you could be in Milan, in a motorcycle chase. You can only
It,
freaking hope for that, man. Uh, I going along with the last deal. Got Barry coming up. What other things are coming up this year that you can share as far as roles and different projects you're really excited about? I know you're in Perry Mason coming back, so congrats on that. That's going to be amazing.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm currently working on that. Worked on that yesterday. Then I work on it again in a couple of weeks. Playing the character Big Marv. So yeah, playing a muscle guy that has I open up the season with an amazing shot. I just they're writers, the storytellers, the oh my gosh, the cinematographers, the directors that those guys have over there in Perry Mason. What a great professional
Yeah.
camp. I mean, yeah, very excited to see what that turns out to be. But I have a fun little part on that I'm currently playing on. That's a lot of fun. It's a great camp. And then Christopher Nolan's movie that he's currently working on, Oppenheimer, which is just, I mean, it looked. We were only on it for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
but it just he's just a genius. He's just such a smart guy in the sense of like he doesn't he, he just puts out what he wants back, which is so
Yeah.
simple in life. It's like, I mean, if you want people to be passionate, then be passionate. I mean, show your passion. If you want people to be fair, show fair. If you want people to work hard, then work hard. And he does it all. He's an amazing filmmaker, someone to inspire to be like and take a lot of tips from. But yeah, he's doing his film right now, which
Wow.
looks like it's going to be. We'll see how it's going to do, but I would be very surprised if it doesn't become one of his better movies.
Really? Oh, okay. That you don't hear a whole lot about it either. So that's fantastic to hear, especially coming from somebody who was on set, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that was
Wow,
interesting.
man. That
Yeah.
okay. That boosts my my hopes for that movie because it's Nolan. He's gonna do something great with it. I just wasn't sure, Oppenheimer, we'll see. But you, Christopher Nolan, boom, I'm in.
Oh,
Uh
but
I
thank you, brother. Yeah, it was
Yeah, of
great.
course.
It's gonna
I
be
mean,
great.
honestly, man, I've been a fan of yours since I saw The Fighter. I think I had just graduated high school. I saw The Fighter, and about 2 years after that, I just sort of fell into the acting industry. And then I look at people like yourself and other people I look up to, and I see that career trajectory, and it does give me fuel to keep going and find my own drive to do it. So I want to say before I finish up these last few questions, thank you so much for continuing to expire. Jesus, what am I saying? No caffeine today. To inspire people that still look up to you, even if you're outside of the classroom. It's amazing what you do every single day, and the fact that you do a lot of stunts and you're still walking. You're like the hardest guy out there.
It's a miracle. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It
Yeah,
means a lot. That
yeah,
means
of
a lot.
course,
Thank you.
man. Um, now that I've completely gotten rid of my my tongue tiedness. Honestly, this lack of coffee in the last few days is kicking my ass. But we'll move on to the last few questions, man. I'd sent this previously, but I do want to ask you. It's my favorite question of our entire podcast, but
Yeah.
it's essentially just asking you if you have a party story you could share with the listeners. So it could be something that happened to you while working on set, something that maybe doesn't even have a single thing to do with the arts industry, but it's a story that has impacted you so much that you would gladly share it at a party, not missing a single beat.
Ooh, back. So when I did the it's 2007. Yeah. it was 2007. We were doing Leatherheads. I was doubling George Clooney. It was like a boys club for like 3 months, and that's where we all bonded. And that was where Stephen Root and a handful of other guys and I all became like pretty much friends, and still today.
Yeah.
And George invited us all over to his house for New Year's Eve. So he's like, "Hey, come on over to the house." And so we all showed up at the house. We had a blast that night. And then the night ends with all of us jumping into the pool in the hot tub. And I just remember sitting in the hot tub with a bottle of Cristal and champagne, and like and the moon's out, and I'm sitting here thinking like, and I'm looking around, and George is opposite me. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, how did I get here? I was just teaching in the public schools of Worcester, Massachusetts to special ed kids. And I was teaching preschool for 7 years before that. How did I end up? This is surreal, man. My career could end today, and I feel 100% fulfilled in what I came out here to do. So I think it was that feeling of fulfillment that kind of made a lot of other things come effortlessly in my career.
Yeah.
Not really like feeling I need it, but more like I feel completely fulfilled at where I am today. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite party stories I think I remember in my life, where it just was a big pivotal point on on my career and where things change and my outlook on things.
Oh man, that's fantastic. That's every actor's dream. You know,
Oh,
to sit
to
there
be in
going, I don't know
George's
how I
hot
got
tub,
here,
yeah.
but that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that party story. And this kind of goes directly with that, but asking if you have any advice for maybe those who are trying to get into the arts industry, or maybe those who are kind of tooling around with it, been in it for a while and trying to continue on. Do you have any advice you could pass on to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is kind of like what I mentioned, just feeling fulfilled in life with what you have accomplished up to this point. And that doesn't take, I'm not saying take away from the drive, but feeling completely fulfilled and satisfied where you are is one of those things that I kept seeing reoccurring in my career, that once I felt that way and truly felt that feeling and lived it, that things just started coming effortlessly. And I remember, so I come from the NESCAC community of colleges. And I remember they had a seminar for us out here at CBS one time. And they had a bunch of speakers. And one of the guys that got up and spoke, he mentioned like, one of the best things that I can give you guys for words of advice about this entertainment business is work smart, not hard. And that always stuck with me, because I'm really good at working hard, but sometimes you're just running in a wheel and you're not going anywhere, as opposed to like, hey, stop. Think about it. Step off the wheel and start walking that way. So it was just like, you can get really far and fast in this career, I think, if you just work smart and think about things. And I think if it's not working, then do something different, and then just keep working. And that's probably the best advice I can say, is feeling fulfilled and working smart, not so hard.
Yeah, no, I think that's suitable. Working the smartest is, I think, the hardest thing you can do, ironically enough, in the industry. Just like you said, we can have a whole toolbook of how to navigate this spot, but unless you know how to, grease the wheels, man, it's not gonna go as smoothly as you think it would be.
That's true.
No,
Yeah.
that's fantastic advice. And once again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you've been working like crazy. We'll finish it up here, but I want to say thank you again for joining the show, donating your time, and allowing myself and other arts workers to kind of listen to your story and get to know who you are. Because I think most of us recently have just seen you in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and just got a kick out of you completely exploding into confetti. So that's
Yeah, that was a fun one.
magical experience in the theater, I can tell you that much. The last thing I'll do for this episode, sir, is ask you if you wouldn't mind giving us your best awkward goodbye. Now, I'll describe what this is really quick. Essentially, if you've seen Wayne's World, it is a silent 3, 2, 1 countdown that I'll give. And when I point to you, just give me your best verbally based awkward goodbye, and then we will part from there. You ready for that?
Sure, why not?
All right. It's like being in acting class again. All
Yeah.
right, Anthony. Thank you again for coming onto the show. I'm going to sign off with you here in
Ciao.